saw that China is strong and that we are weak. And so they said, yeah, absolutely, you totally can. And that is the beginning of the death of the petrodollar. The only thing that the US dollar right now is good for is being the world's prime reserve currency holder, meaning that all transactions have to take place with the US dollar. Now, when we threw this massive sanctions package at Russia for what they did in Ukraine, the Chinese came in there and they said, hey, we'll underwrite your economy. And then they also came up with an alternative economy in all of Eurasia. So if you just look at the map, you look at China, you look at Russia, that's more than half the world. I mean, there's lots of folks in the international relations space that talk about this all the time. That's the world island. If you control that, you control the world. And so China has come in there and they've created an alliance with Iran, with Saudi Arabia. And so they basically started to undermine the US petrodollar. They're coming up with an alternative currency. And guess who's still paying for all the world's security guarantees? We still are. And so at some point in time, the Chinese are going to stop buying our debt bonds. They've already limited the amount of debt bonds they're buying up. Meanwhile, the bond market's totally gone haywire, and we're bailing out banks, Silicon Valley banks. And so this deck of cards, these two crises of capital markets and our economy, along with what's happening on the world stage, they're going to collide at some point. And this is the thing with war that I learned. Nobody can ever predict exactly how war is going to turn out. There's a lot of folks that always say, well, hey, if we do X, Y, and Z, we apply these tactics here, we apply this weapon system there, we know exactly how the battle's going to turn out. And you know what? Most of these people are almost always wrong. So right now, we have so much on the line right now in Europe and on the world stage with capital markets that no one knows what the actual match is going to be that lights this powder keg off. And so we have to do something about it. Congress is completely and totally been derelict in their duties. Matt Gaetz just 2 weeks ago, he tried to get a war powers resolution for Syria to get our troops back out of Syria. Republicans and Democrats, unfortunately, unified to keep our troops in Syria, to keep these authorizations, use of military forces going, to keep our endless wars going. And if you ask them, like, why would they vote for that? None of them can articulate it. They'll say something vague about, like, well, we have to fight the terrorists over there, so we don't fight them over here. But none of them can come up with an actual vital national security interest. Same thing with the folks that continue to push this nonsense in Ukraine. And the funny thing is, I mean, people will say, like, hey, that's a big national issue, and that's great, but how does that affect me here in the district? That does affect us very, very much. Any issue that you care about here locally, that affects you, because the priority of our government, all of our taxpayer dollars, that's where it's going. It's going over to fight these wars overseas. It's going to prop up Silicon Valley banks. It's going to make people on Wall Street very, very rich. And that's what we, the people, have to start pushing back again. So that's why I'm still in the fight. I'm absolutely honored to have all of you here in the fight with me, so going forward. So obviously, we always need donations, but we more or less, we really just need a lot of volunteers to get out, knock on doors. If any of you guys can identify folks who we know are conservatives that didn't vote for me for one reason or another, I will show up on their front door. I'll meet them for a cup of coffee. I'll give them a phone call. I'm more than happy to talk to them. We'll kick back up our town halls here shortly, because I think town halls are a great way to reach people. But I just couldn't be more grateful for all of your support. If Raheem's good with it, we could probably do some Q&A if you guys want to ask me and Raheem some questions. Sorry, I was editing in real time. Yeah, we'll do it after the auction. No, let's do the auction first. Yeah.
So, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do the auction and then you do a Q&A. Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, you can tell that we really make sure that we have the script down. We're all on the same page, right? Don't go anywhere, because this is where I get to ask you guys to, I'll put the hat out, and you guys can hopefully support Joe with your things, but you can get something in return. We're going to start out with some cakes, some super tasty desserts back there. They're custom made by Michelle. Are you going to be able to do this, Michelle? Bring those cakes out?
Oh, sure.
So I actually bought one of these at the event last year, I think. And I took it home and my family devoured it. They're super good. We're going to start at $10 for a cake. Oh, yeah, $10 for that cake. Who wants $10 for that cake? Show the cake.
It's a good cake.
Those are yummy.
All right. We got $10 over here. Essentially, you would spend $50 on a custom cake like this at the store for sure. So, you got $10 over here at this table. Anybody else want cake? Anything more?
I think they're all pretty much vanilla.
Vanilla.
Some of them have buttercream, those little white cakes.
Got $20 over here.
Okay.
Yeah, for this cake.
Bring one over?
We got how many small cakes left?
Now we got 3 left.
Okay, who else wants a cake? $10. two at this table. They're hungry.
These have whipped cream frosting. Whipped cream frosting, fresh berries.
So how many cakes you got left over there?
I got 2 more of these tiny ones.
Okay. Who else wants one of these delicious cakes to share with your family and friends? Okay. We got a couple more over here. And the envelopes on your table is where you can put your cash, your check in for. And we got this cake back here. How about $20 for this cake? $20 for this cake. This will be a large family. 3 cakes at this table. You got it? Does someone else want to bid more? Do we want to bid this one up? Okay, it's sold. It's sold. We're just selling off the cakes. Are we all out of cakes?
No, I see a lot of cakes.
Oh, there's that really nice one.
Are you the baker?
Yeah.
Announced they were going
Okay.
like
This is I'll just bring this one out personally. So this one over here, how about $20 for this cake as well? There we go.
Perfect, thank you, ma'am. Oh, and
Well, maybe they'll share theirs with you.
did Michelle?
Couple more things. We do have a real special auction item we didn't expect, and you guys are definitely going to want to do this. We have this egg, and inside this egg we have 4 tickets, which includes a suite. Okay.
It's in the USO suite at the Rainier Scheme. It's in the USO suite at the Rainier Scheme. So it includes VIP parking, 4 tickets, dinner, drinks, everything's included. So you can get a hat and shirts that night too. So we have 4 tickets.
And batting practice, you can go out and,
Yep, you can
and you get balls, and you get
Yep, you
the
can
kids,
go
if you have kids or whatnot, you can have them sign. So if you don't want to do it, maybe you know someone who does. This is a good value, and we are going to start at $200 for 4 tickets and a suite at the Tacoma Rainiers game. It's a single A baseball. It's real baseball. These are the guys that go up to the Mariners next, right? Got 200 over here. Does anybody else want to go a little higher than that? Come on. This is going to be a fun time, especially if you've got a family or a group of people or kids. I mean, this is retail value. What is that worth?
600.
Yeah, 600. I mean, it includes a suite. So, can we go a little higher than 200? Come on. Someone else want to get in there.
April 9th.
April 9th is the date. So we have $200 over there. Can we get $250? You guys don't like baseball? It's the American pastime. $250, that's good, okay. All right, about $300. Come on. This is a good package. I mean, if I didn't have to travel 2 hours to get there, I would buy this myself. I don't know, is there a conflict? I can't do that. $250? $300? We're on?
300 over here.
300, okay. Anybody else? Okay, 300 sold. We're moving on. I'm sure everybody has seen this nice frame photo up here of Joe Kent and President Donald J. Trump. It's really cool. They both got the thumbs up. They've got the American flags. And we've been told to start this, without right on your wall or in your office even. $400 is what we're going to try to get for this. And the last time the auction went these off, actually went up to $1,200 by the time someone bought it. It's a great piece if you want to have, especially if you have an office or something like that. Anybody want to jump in? 500 over here. Nice, thank you. What else do we got? We have 600. Let's go. You guys aren't interested in this. $600 is a deal. Anybody else? 500 over there. Is that it? I think the frame's worth 2. Come on. I guess that's it. No one else wants it? Okay, $500. Sold. And then the last item we have, and this is the special one. I know that you guys were probably waiting for this one, and it's a day, we just found out this was going to happen. This is an auction for a day in DC with Raheem Kassam. And so what this is going to include, you're going to have to get yourself there, okay? But he will take you through a day, what his day is like. So to his studio, he will take you around to all offices he goes to. You're probably going to meet some really cool people. You're going to get to experience some things. And so it's like a day in the life of Raheem Kassam.
Are you going to be at Zach and Matt at Warford?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're willing to do?
He said the martini bar. He said
We got martinis too.
So I didn't know about the auction before I was here, and I heard about it, and I thought, look, the least I can do is show people like what actually goes on, right? Like, where do we go? Who do we talk to? How does it all work? And you know, if it's in support of somebody like Joe, I would do it. If 10 different people want to do it, I'll give up 10 days to do it, right? So yes, we will do the formal DC things. But yes, we will also do the Morton's Terrace with the martinis. We'll be, you know, unfortunately it's not a better one, but like, who's always at the table next to me at Morton's is Senator Bob Menendez to my left. And no, I mean, come on, you can't put a price on telling Bob Menendez what you think of him, okay? It's pretty good. You know, we've got Terry McAuliffe is always out there. He's always out there. He introduced himself to me recently, and he said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I said, "No, look, I'll just cut long story short. I was the chief of staff at 9 He goes, "Great to meet you, see you later." But you know, that's all a part of it. You know, I want to show somebody or a group of you. Maybe you want to go in and in together, but I want to show you like what it's actually like on a day-to-day basis. So I hope that in support of Joe, that you will dig deep for this thing, because I will show you a heck of a time. Like, we will have a heck of a time educationally, and we'll have a heck of a time socially. Okay, so. Wow.
Still stronger.
So we're going to start the minimum bid at this at $750 for a day in DC.
We going in? Yeah.
750, okay. Where we got over here? How much?
8.
Oh, you're taking 750 each? Is that how it works?
Keep going.
Yeah, let's start with a group of 5. Is that what we're doing?
It can be a group of what?
We're just winging it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So 750. So, all right. So 800. All right. How about $1,000? For $1,000. How about $1,200? How about $1,500 for a day in DC with Raheem Kassam?
Now, I can't guarantee it. I can't guarantee it.
Over here, $1,500, okay?
Steve lives on the catty corner from me. We might go over to the war room.
Yeah, this is a lifetime experience. How about, let's just stop messing around right now. $2,000. $2,000. $2,500?
Yeah.
All right, $2,500. $2,600. All right. Now we're talking. Now we're smoking. All right, this is better than cake, right? So
I'll bake a cake for the day.
we're cake and martinis with me, okay? So who wants to go? We're $2,600. Who wants to go 28? Come on. $2,800. We're over here. $2,800. We're at $3,000. Who's got $3,000 for a day with Raheem Kassam in DC? Hobnobbing with all the bigwigs, drink martinis, $3 grand right here. Yeah. All right. You guys tired of this yet? Okay, let's go $3,200. Who's got $3,200? I mean, $3,200? I mean, this guy, $3,200, just when you entertain the factor alone and listen to this guy for a whole day, can you imagine that?
I'll tell you something.
He will tell you she's I listened to him on the Triggered, which is Don Jr.'s podcast a couple of days ago, and toward the end of the show, he's telling stories, and there were some stories he couldn't tell, but he promised Don that he would, when they were done recording, he would tell those stories, and I imagine we'll be able to get to hear a few of those. So where are we at? 3,400? What was the highest bid last week?
32.
We're at 32.
34.
34. All right, this is fun, man. I don't know. Okay. we're actually not the person.
This country got bad form.
$3,400. You know, I think I would probably go for more than that. How about 35? Who's got 3,500? 3,500. Okay, we got a battle going on. You know, someone out there is just waiting to say 10 grand. All right, 3,500 is where we're at. 3,600. Who's got $3,600? He's buying the drinks. Remember, that's the expensive part. In DC, drinks are expensive, and you might pay $22 for a martini in some of those places.
Yeah, the dive bar.
I went to the water game and double Jameson was $44. Oh, 3,600?
Boom.
All right. 3,700. He wants it bad.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
Okay.
We got 3,700.
You guys can each go.
We'll do it twice.
Yeah.
We'll do it twice.
37.
Okay? How about that?
All right, so we can double winners. Raheem, thank you so much, man. So they agreed to do a little Q&A. So what we'll do is we'll bring Raheem and Joe up here. I'm going to take this other mic and I'll wander around the audience. And if anybody has any questions they want to ask these guys, now's the time to do it.
Thank you.
Who's got a question?
It's not bad.
I'll start us off with an easy question. It's for Joe, because it's military. I'm really concerned that President Poopy Pants has depleted our strategic petroleum reserve, and we've also donated so much of our military equipment to Ukraine, and now we're broke, and gas is at an all-time high. What kind of commentary do you have about our positioning were any world war to break out at this time anyway? It seems to me we're pretty plumb out of supplies.
Yeah, we're definitely not as ready as we should be, because you're right, we gave, I mean, a conservative estimate is 120, 130 billion to the Ukrainians, and what I always like to say is you have to double that, because the military-industrial complex will give that aid over, and then they'll go right back to Congress, which is what they're doing right now, and they're saying like, hey, by the way, our stocks are low because you sent all those HIMARS, javelins, these things take a long time to actually produce, and we recklessly just started sending them all over to Ukraine. Reckless, obviously, because we're also pushing World War III, but that's a major issue, strategic petroleum, that's huge. I mean, we caught the Biden administration dipping into our strategic petroleum reserve, not just right ahead of the midterms for political reasons, but they also sold some of it to China, which is absolute insanity. We're losing all of our leverage with the petrodollar, with OPEC, and still, I mean, Biden just he just authorized a few new drilling locations up in Alaska, but at the same time, he canceled a bunch of other permits. So we have the ability to be absolutely energy independent, to be a massive net exporter of energy, but we're just simply not doing it. So if things break out right now, we're in a very, very bad position. The only thing, and this is a horrible thing to have confidence in, I personally think the Chinese are getting everything they want. And so they might keep us bleeding out throughout the entire world. But again, like I said, with war, people always want to pretend like they know what's going on. But right now, any kind of escalation over in Ukraine could plunge us into World War III. What if China does, I mean, because they have war hawks in their party too. What if they do move on Taiwan? Then what's going to happen? What do? We have Biden in the White House. So and Biden's national security team, if you get to know these people, I worked under Lloyd Austin when he was in uniform. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Tony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, these guys are absolute midwits when it comes to national security.
Okay.
Joe, would you join the Magnificent 20 in the House?
Yeah, so with that, I was really clear. I even told this to Speaker McCarthy when I met him before he was the speaker. Look, I pledged on the campaign trail last time that I would not vote for McCarthy as Speaker, and most of that was because, look, there was a lot of folks in the Republican establishment who were saying, as Raheem said, wearing the skin suit of MAGA because they knew it bode well, but then at the same time working against us. And that was true for the way they were supporting Jamie. And you guys aren't dumb, you knew that. And so I was asked all the time, hey, will you vote for Kevin McCarthy? And most people were telling me, you can't vote for Kevin McCarthy. So that was a promise I made on the campaign trail. I told that to Speaker McCarthy too. I was like, look, I promised people that I would not vote for you as Speaker. Now, with that said, the negotiation that took place and the rules package that Matt Gaetz and those guys, that they got McCarthy to agree to, and the way that McCarthy is conducting himself now as a Speaker, I'd have no issue supporting him. If he keeps doing what he's doing right now, he's got my full support. No issue there whatsoever. And to McCarthy's credit, you guys can just Google Kevin McCarthy. I've said a lot of bad things about him. Now, but if you look at the way he's behaving right now, but also to McCarthy's credit, during that Speaker negotiation, McCarthy's been in D.C. for a very long time. He has relationships with moderate Democrats. I think McCarthy deserves credit for letting that fight play out internal to the Republican Party. He could have easily gone across the aisle and gotten a bunch of moderate Democrats to vote for him and really just made this the Magnificent 20, the Magnificent 6, whatever you want to call them, and made them absolutely obsolete. But he didn't do it. He kept it within the Republican Party, and he agreed to that rules package. So I think across the board, regardless of where you fall on the specter, you should be happy with the fact that we don't have a top-down party, that we actually have everybody has their voice heard in our Big Tent party.
Any other questions out there?
I have one.
I have a question. I have a question for all of you, and it's just, I'm just doing this as part of, one of the reasons I like coming outside of DC and New York, where I spend most of my time, unfortunately, is talking to real people in the real country informs the work, the reporting that we do, how we frame everything. And so I'm trying to figure out, as I go around the country, and I did an event for the New York Republicans a couple of weeks ago, and I asked the same question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to answer, obviously. It's still relatively a free country. Is it DeSantis? Is it Trump? Is it somebody else? So again, you don't have to answer if you don't want to answer, but let me see a show of hands if it's Donald J. Trump. Let me see a show of hands if it's Ron DeSantis. And a show of hands if it's somebody else.
Me, Republican.
It's you. It's you.
Get a better chance at Mike Pence.
And I think that's very interesting. I really do, because the Twitter conversation, the social media conversation, which I know so many of you are like following along with and a part of. By the Twitter conversation, you would think that in rooms like this, it was like, oh, 60-40, but it's not. What I have come to know as the Rovian irreality, right, is that this is a two-horse race, but it's not a two-horse race. It's not. Now listen, I go back to what I said earlier, and I told you you'd have to wrestle the mic from me. But I go back to what I said earlier. And it's like, do you want a guy in there who's going to do the learning curve stuff for 4 years, or do you want a guy in there who goes, I see how you screwed me, I see how you screwed everyone, and we're going to get back at you for it? And listen, if after those 4 years, you people in this room, it's your country, decide that then you want Ron DeSantis, oh, well, then fine, that is your sovereign choice. But I say, and I stress this once again, this is the last opportunity for that retribution, for that, I'm sorry that it's an ugly word, for that revenge, right?
Justice.
It's justice. It's justice. And there is no America without real justice. And I think that's the guy, and I think you guys have just demonstrated that out to me. So kudos to you for not buying the Fox News hype machine.
Actually, it's a little bit more of a statement about that. I'll tell you that as a registered Democrat and living here, so now it doesn't really matter. I voted for Trump in 16, again in 20 because I saw the light. But I really wasn't on board for Trump coming into this race. I really wasn't. I thought we needed new blood. I thought we needed to pass the torch, whether it was DeSantis or I'm a big Matt Gaetz fan, anybody in that camp that wants to come up here. But I will tell you the big tipping point, the thought that you've already made it, which was the going in there and getting the horseback underneath you after a while, was the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Yep. That just did it. Yep. I went, okay, he's on. And so anything that happens now, whether it's the silliness in New York, or they're going to try to go after him in Georgia, I think that I really do believe that will be a galvanizing point. No, we're not going to take it anymore. So honestly, I might have been a DeSantis at one point in time. We have one brave soldier here, but me and hopefully everybody else is all Trump. We can't do this anymore.
And by the way, I don't know if you know anything to say on that, but so that's not to bully you in any way, shape or form, right? Like, I'm not trying to force people to my persuasion or see things from my perspective, but I'm just saying this. It's a very important moment in history, and it's a moment that history will judge everyone for. Did you allow somebody whose election was stolen out from underneath them another chance to assail the establishment that they so readily assailed at such great personal expense, right? And I don't know about you guys, but if I were Donald Trump in 2016, I would have borne Ireland and said, screw it. And this man just marched headfirst into the fire. And every day he's marched into the fire. And has he made some missteps? Obviously, we are human beings. Mistakes, missteps, all of those things occur. And no other candidate would have done anything different. Believe me, I talked to all of them throughout that period, the Fauci times. Nobody was saying anything different. But the thing that I'm really interested in as well with that conversation is, gosh, there are so many different elements to this. When you think about it, when you think about what goes into running an effective executive branch in a hostile DC with a hostile bureaucracy and a hostile, potentially a hostile Congress, potentially a hostile Senate, and I just don't want these think tank round table discussions in the White House where we try this collegiate environment to bring people together and all of that. And you know full well that even if it's not Ron DeSantis' idea or Nikki Haley's idea or Vivek Ramaswamy's idea, that necessarily occurs because a new team moving into a situation like that, and the teams that are coming to DC, I'll show you this firsthand, are seduced by the idea that the left perpetuates that, we might like you, we might bring you over to our side, you might be allowed to come and dine with us at the Monocle, or you might be allowed to come and sit at Bob Menendez's table at Wharton's, and so on and so forth. And it obviously never happens, and they just lever it. It's gaslighting, right? It's gaslighting, over and over again. And I can tell you this, Donald Trump will not be gaslit anymore. The team around him will not be gaslit anymore. The days of red wine and roses and rose-tinted spectacles are fundamentally over. This is a war for the soul of the nation. And this is what I said to Trump Jr. on his podcast the other day. I said, listen, I actually want to see the MAGA hat replaced. I want to see a red hat. Who watched the launch speech from Mar-a-Lago in September? Did you guys watch that? So I was there in the room, and what was really jarring to me was at the end of the speech. At the end of the speech, he always says, we will make America safe again, we will make America strong again, we will make America great again, right? That's my Trump impression. You should hear the Obama impression, by the way. But it involves a lot of bending over, so I wouldn't. But in this speech, he said, we will make America strong again, we will make America safe again, we will make America glorious again, we will make America great again. I thought to myself, my goodness, that's different. Because we will make America glorious again is necessarily jarring. It doesn't flow, it's not what a speechwriter would write, it's something different. It's about spirituality. it's about the difference between good and evil. It's about the soul of the nation. And I said, I told Trump Jr., I said, you should replace the MAGA hat with just a hat that says glory in massive white letters with gold stitch surrounding it, red hat. Let me talk about, for a second, I hope you don't mind me doing this. I hope you don't mind me doing this. But let me talk for a second about what I experienced when I talk to Gen Z and the younger generation. Is like, greatness is kind of like, I don't really want America to be great. They've been raised on that, right? They think that's racist or whatever, right? But when you talk about glory, they think about something different. They think about victory, they think about winning, they think about, what it means, they're all influencers now, right? So they think about success, what success means. You start talking to them in sort of almost like 1980s, like big American brash, the jets are overhead, the flags are flying, the men are muscular, macho. You talk to them in those terms, and they start thinking a different way. Glory, I like glory. I really like glory. Everybody wants to have glory. You've got to have glory in your lives. And look, a lot of the anti-Trump people are saying, okay, but Trump can't win independents, Trump can't win the young voters, they make all these things. I'd say, okay, look, yes, if you're running the same campaign as you ran in 2020, that may be true, but you're not going to be running the same campaigns in 2020. You're going to be running a very different campaign. This campaign is the difference between good and evil. It is the difference between whether America as a force for good in the world survives or not. That is what this campaign is going to be about. And so I think when you put your shoulder to the wheel on these issues, you have to have that word in mind. It's glory. And frankly, I was raised a Muslim in West London. I was very lucky because my parents were pretty liberal in their interpretations of Islam. But I saw people around me going through a particularly hardline Islamist approach to the way they lived their lives. And then I left Islam and I became an atheist for a while, and then I found God and Christianity and Jesus Christ. And I understood that every single part of the fight that we fight is about God's glory. So I don't just want to make America strong again. I don't just want to make America safe again. I don't just want to make America great again. I want to make America glorious again. And I hope you do too.
Hey Joe, I know we spoke earlier. My question is, with Russ Vought's budget proposal, what, I don't know if this is a fair question, the proposal that he's putting forth about a cut straight across the line. What's your feeling? I don't know if it's fair to put you on the spot. I know where you stand when you say that, but what's your feeling with the House? Are they going to draw the line on this with McCarthy, or are they going to fold and have a gradual increase on the debt ceiling?
The debt ceiling?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, right now they're saying all the right things. I think if they were if there was pressure to cave, it may have happened already. I mean, but the Democrats are trying to portray it like the Republicans are just being absolutely insane. I mean, they're basically saying we need to actually have a realistic approach and we need to actually present the plan. Like, I mean, it's very basic. Every American does this every day in their own household. Like, you take in so much money, what are you going to spend it on? I think that's a very fair thing to ask. So I hope they hold the line. I think right now that the Freedom Caucus has enough influence over McCarthy and over a lot of the folks who may just want to get on to, adding earmarks to this bill or that bill or the NDAA, that we're actually going to have to force this. Because right now, unfortunately, this is the biggest piece of leverage that the Republican-controlled House is going to have, because last Congress, the 117th, because the Senate folded, they approved the budget. So right now, all the leverage of the purse strings that we should have, we don't have, because they're running on the budget that was already approved. So this debt ceiling fight, it's critical for leverage, but it's also like, we've got to draw the line. We can't continue to spend money this way. We take in nearly $5 trillion in taxes. There's enough money to pay Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all that nonsense. There's enough, it's not nonsense, it's important stuff. There's enough money to pay all of that. It's this discretionary spending that the Democrats want an unlimited amount of. That's why, like I said, that the budget that Biden presented, that the Democrats are all supporting, it's complete. It's not even serious. They said they want an additional $1 trillion. It's a $6 trillion budget. And the vast majority of that's discretionary spending, just absolute insanity. So I mean, right now, we're right on all the issues, of course. We believe that from in our hearts when we articulate it. But this one, I think if we explain it in the proper way to the American people, and especially if Biden keeps gaslighting, saying they're gonna starve grandma, they're gonna take away your Social Security and Medicare, which is what they always say. And we've been very clear, the Republicans have been very clear that we're not touching that. We have enough money to pay for all of that. We just want a priority of payments, and we want a realistic budget proposal, and we're not going to raise the debt ceiling to do it. So I hope they hold the line on it, I really do.
Can I just have one?
Just one thing on that, right? And I think I hope we all know this at this point in time, that whether or not you subscribe to the agenda at the time, I don't think even necessarily matters. But Ron Paul was right. Like, he was so right about all of the things that he warned us about and all of the Fed stuff. And, you know, we talk about everything that's going on in the financial world at the moment, right? And everybody has a reason for it. They talk about the bond markets and they talk about trade yields and, you know, just financial instruments into, you know, industry jargon terms. But the fact of the matter becomes very simple. That when you have fiat currency and you have fiat currency exploited to this level, everybody can take a little bit of guff, right? That's banking. that's most of the corporate world. Everybody can take a little bit here and there of, yeah, we're going to say we've got money to give you if there's a run on the bank, but we don't really, right? But at the end of the day, we all know the truth, right? The truth is we're going to keep going through these same things over and over again until the very basis of the currency is talked about. Which is fiat, which is how the Federal Reserve operates, all these things, and I just think it's amazing. Does anybody in this room know who Enoch Powell was? So Enoch Powell was a British parliamentarian between, 1950 and 1987. He was a polyglot. He spoke 17 different languages, 11 of them fluently. He was a brigadier in the British Army. He was the second youngest professor in Western civilization. The youngest was Nietzsche. And he was a classicist. He was the best prime minister we never had. And they used to call him the British Goldwater, right? And I actually think that they undersold him because I think he succeeded far beyond what Barry Goldwater did. And I'm a Goldwater guy, right? Like, I'm a big Goldwater guy. But what those people were talking about at the time, in that period of time, between the 50s and the 80s, were like, hey, those people were saying, you can't keep doing this forever. You can't keep undermining your currency forever. We went through it. The pound used to be the world's stable currency. And it will happen to you, the same thing will happen to you unless you get a grip of this thing. So yes, the budget is a very important part of all of this, but at the same time, you have to look, they try and distract you, right? The Jim Cramers of the world, they try to say, oh, this run of the bank happened because of this financial instrument, and these guys are looking at this. We all know why it's happening. It's happening because the money doesn't mean anything. And the world is calling America's bluff on the currency right now. And you talked about China earlier, and I think you were bang on. China is not just calling the bluff of the American dollar, but it's getting every other country on board to call the bluff of the American dollar. This is what we need to be talking about. And listen, if you congregate in Washington, D.C., as we will, and we will, we'll have our own little insurrections, right? On the Morton's Terrace. But this is what they're accusing of. This is, oh, you're attacking the norms, you're attacking the institutions. Well, yeah. They're unsound. They don't make sense. They've stopped making sense decades ago. You have to assail those issues. I know there are people in the room who were there, early days Tea Party, right? It's time again. It's time again. And it's a British man telling you about the Tea Party. Okay, right? Look at the irony of it.
Okay, we have one last question here. Okay.
Yeah, I just have one question. So, like you, Joe, I am a vet. I'm a war vet. Probably different war, much older than you. I'm a family full of veterans. I'm disabled. My dad is a disabled vet. My husband is. There's so many of us. And I was saying to my friend Adrian earlier that I think the most powerful thing that we can say to anyone in any language is, yes, I will help you. So I know your platform and I know a lot of your policies and a lot of the changes that you're trying to make, and I'm fully on board. My question to you, and I think everybody kind of, just wants to get a little breakdown is when I come to you and say, Joe, I need help, and you say, yes, Rhonda, I will help you. As a veteran, utilizing the system that is chaos, it's an ordeal. I do utilize the VA system, and it's terrible, and when I need very, very specific, even more intensive care, it's even worse. So as a veteran, when you say to me, yes, I will help you, how are you going to help me?
So the biggest thing is pressure. I mean, the VA is an absolute disaster. It's a massive bureaucracy. The VA basically, the only thing the VA is actually good at is occasionally sending out payments or sending you prescription medication. And that's about it. Getting people actual care, it is an absolute behemoth. And so for me, VA reforms that I want to make is really just privatize the VA much, much more, give veterans choice, because like right now here in Lewis County, we used to have a veterans clinic, but it got shut down, right?
Yeah.
And there was one right out there in, that's in right here in Chehalis, right down the street. They closed it down. Yeah, and so now you either have to drive to Portland or you have to drive to American Lake, to JBLM. And again, like what's the government's priority? Like big picture, what's the government's priority? They closed down those clinics and they sent a lot of the VA doctors and nurses down to the southern border. So literally our government, and this is no hyperbole here, they are prioritizing illegal immigrants who have chosen to violate our borders over our actual veterans. So systemically, the VA, the biggest thing I can think is to put the choice in the veterans' hands. But for me, as your congressman, veterans obviously will have top priorities. It's near and dear to my heart. I get my health care from the VA. I'm going to keep it that way because that gives me a good, my finger on the pulse of how just broken the system. I mean, Heather will tell you, she's a retired vet as well. I hate dealing with the VA. I will skip doctor's appointments and stuff just because they make it so complicated. It's like the DMV. They really just want you to go away. That's why they have it. They put you to this operator and that operator. So the biggest thing that I can do as a congressman is have a very responsive staff that prioritizes veterans. And if I have to, use the weight of the office as a member of Congress to pick up the phone and call the VA and say, hey, what's going on here? Because like any bureaucrat, they're really good at blowing off who they should be supporting, the warfighters and the veterans. However, if our congressman picks up the phone and says, where is this claim? Then they will actually move on it because they know they're being looked at. So public pressure is big, but then we do have to get back to having veterans' choice. The mission. I mean, Biden basically got rid of the Mission Act. He basically got rid of veterans' choice. He's got a word salad sandwich as to why he didn't do that. But when you look at the regulations that he rolled back, that's Tiffany Smiley. That's how she got into politics, was taking care of her husband who was wounded in action. And she fought the VA, and Trump signed. The Mission Act was really written by Tiffany Smiley and a handful of other care providers. Trump signed that, and Biden's completely and totally eroded it. So we've just got a ton of work to do on the VA.
I guess we have one more question.
Sure.
So we had the honor of meeting with you in DC last Thursday. And after your event, we went to for the January 6th prisoners. And we learned that there are 2 veterans in jail right now that are in pretrial detainment that both have cancer and were both veterans that fought in the Vietnam War, and one was a Purple Heart recipient and a very decorated officer. So I know that it brings up controversy. How are we going to get the truth out to the people about these prisoners? Because Timothy McVeigh, who killed 3,800 Americans in the Oklahoma bombing, had the right to a speedy trial, and our veterans do not.
Yep.
It's absurd. I mean, for a while there was only MTG and Gates that were talking about this. So we're getting more public pressure put on them. I mean, Kevin McCarthy released all the footage, so we have to keep the pressure on because, look, this is banana republic nonsense. I mean, they're going after Trump, but it's not just Trump. It's parents that show up at school board meetings. It's the J6 prison. I mean, we're, what, 2 years plus past January 6th, and these guys are still being held without detention. I say this all the time because I went to the Justice for J6 rally.
And without chemotherapy. One of them has not.
Yeah. I mean, this is stuff that I saw in Libya and Syria. This is the way authoritarian regimes act, and this is what's being done to our citizens. So I say all the time to people, I don't really care what their crime is. Give them a speedy trial. Give them representation. Let them actually defend themselves. These guys, in their defense cases, they haven't had the ability to go and pull up the surveillance footage from January 6th until now. So public pressure is absolutely huge. I know you were on the ground and
yeah, so unfortunately for my sins, I live on Capitol Hill, and if I open my bay window of my apartment, I could spit and hit the Capitol, and I often do. But I was there, I walked out of the studio in the morning, and I walked down the hill, and I was with Jack Posobiec and a friend of mine who is now a JAG officer down in Tampa, and we heard the first flashbang or whatever it was that they deployed going off, and I thought to myself, oh goodness, we've got a situation on our hands here. So we went to the top of a building called 101 Constitution Avenue, and that's where One American News has their studio in the basement of that building. But we went up to the rooftop, and the rooftop has an unobstructed view over the entire Capitol grounds. And so, well, you can't see behind the Capitol, obviously, but in front of us was everything going on. And I turned to Jack and I said, I think we've got a real problem on our hands here, because this is not our people who are going to be inciting this stuff here. It's very obvious, and it became very obvious to us in extremely short order, that, were some people on our side led astray? Sure. But where did the instigation come from? I mean, really, let's be grown-ups about this. And if you've studied history at all, you know what happens in these scenarios, and you know who the instigators are and what their motivations are behind all of that. I mean, you guys have seen the video now of the QAnon shaman being escorted around the building, by the police on the day and so forth. And I just think this, look, last week, Gavin Wax of the New York Young Republicans called me and he said, we're going to do a protest outside the courthouse in downtown Manhattan. I said, great, I'll be there. He said, really? You're going to come up? I said, I'm going to be there. Stupid, I didn't check the seller prices that day. It cost me about $1,500 of my own money to go up to New York and hang out with them while they protested outside there, but I thought it was so important because guess what? Okay? You cannot allow a situation like January the 6th to stop you expressing yourselves on the streets of your own country. You cannot be cowed into submission by whatever it was. Okay, you can diagnose it however you want. That it was riots and the Fedsurrection, or it was just a bunch of old guys being stupid, or whatever you want. But you cannot allow it to cow you into submission. Right? To stop you going out and allowing your voice to be heard. My goodness, my friends, you are some of the last people on God's green earth who still has that right. You must use it. Otherwise, you become like these places that you just said are doing these things against their own citizens, and nobody pays an iota of attention. Why? Because it's normalized there. You must not allow that to be normalized here. So, my attitude towards all of this is, okay, again, lean into it, right? If they're gonna allege that we're all these sorts of frothing at the mouths, unclubbable deplorables, then guess what I'm gonna be? I'm gonna be a frothing at the mouth, unclubbable deplorable. Okay? That's just what we're gonna do. My friend Tommy Robinson was arrested in the United Kingdom a few years ago for doing journalism outside a courtroom. There was a mass Muslim rape gang on trial, but Tommy was arrested for broadcasting from outside of the court. He was held in contempt of court. We've heard about contempt of court, we've heard contempt of Congress. He was arrested, and he was imprisoned, and he was put in the most heavily Muslim populated prison in the United Kingdom, right? HMP Oldham. I won't forget it, because I was in Budapest with Bannon at the time, and we were due to fly to Rome the next day for a series of meetings, and I heard about this thing, and I told Steve, I said, Steve, I'm afraid I'm going to have to take some time away and go and help this situation in London. And without a second's thought, Steve said to me, with your shield or on it. With your shield or on it. And that means, on your shield means you are killed in battle. But defeat and coming home, like a rude worm, is not an option. And what we did was we put 20,000 patriots on the street, on Whitehall, while Theresa May was in Downing Street, and we forced the issue into the government's hands. We forced the issue into the media's hands. And we said, we're going to be out here next week again, and we're going to be out here, and guess what? Tommy Robinson is now a free man, okay? Back to the glory point. My girlfriend is an Elvis fan. And she just explained to me, and I'm sorry, it probably is a sin in this country, but I had never heard the American trilogy.
We know what to do.
And that song, and the end of that song, right, the way it crescendos, glory, glory, hallelujah, His truth is marching on. That is the song we need to have in our hearts, and it's the word we need to have in our heads, is glory, because we will get there.
We can do this all night, but we're going to have to start collecting money to pay the extra rent here if we do. So
we're going to move it out to the street.
How about the bar? This will be the last question, and then we're going to wrap it up. If you did get if you bid on any of the silent auction items, make sure to go check it out, see if you won or not.
Let's announce it.
Don't leave without your thing. But anyway, we'll announce it after the last question here. So here you go.
So I harken back to your comment about cologne, and I actually was remembering because I was reading about what was occurring there in Germany, and I thought this, along with Angela Merkel's blatant disregard for not only for her own citizens, but also for the placement of her own troops in literally where the Soviet Union used to be, I found it kind of ironic they were then deciding they were going to construct a new wall there, along with making what some have dubbed the Twitter firewall in regards to the blatant censorship from 2016 on up until Elon smashed that. I was going to ask both of you then, in relations to the reaction to Angela Merkel, about how troops regarded the blatant disregard for them, because I think there's even a movie written about it by Clint Eastwood about the two that stopped the train from having been derailed by said migrants. And then the second was, what was Trump and his admin's reactions from your guys' perspectives, or even firsthand, regarding that same situation, specifically with the troops being in harm's way by a blatant backhanded allies' actions?
I'll go first because I want to make sure that everybody knows that Joe is the star of the show here tonight, so he should rap, right? Somebody in this room was the first person to publish the story about what happened in Cologne when nobody else would. And that was me. Breitbart London was the first place to publish that story, and we were called all sorts of things for it. I was. And I'm sorry to play this card, I'm not Nikki Haley, but like as a brown man, raised in a Muslim family, reporting on a mass Muslim attempted gang rape attack in Cologne on New Year's Eve, I was called an Islamophobe for writing about it. You talked about the Iranian regime earlier. The Iranian regime in 2014 actually named me the Islamophobe of the Year. And I'm still waiting for my trophy. And my cash award.
Somebody else to pick it up.
But we were the first to publish that. We were pillory. I mean, they tried to ruin my entire career. I am a 10-year-long member of the oldest journalism union in my country. They tried to revoke my status as reporting the truth based on us reporting that story. And of course, 2 or 3 days later, the head of the Cologne police came out and said, no, it didn't happen. It did actually happen. That happened. And of course, we then learned it actually happened. Do you guys know what this is, Taharush, and all of this that these guys do? They believe that white Western women are necessarily fair game for this behavior. And I'm not saying that this is how every person from that part of the world behaves, but it's how those people from that part of the world behave in the West. So why aren't we facing up to it? Why are we staring that down? I'm willing to stare that down, and I'm from that part of the world. And so we were pilloried as a result of this. So for me, that moment in time is extremely important, extremely important. It was a formative part of everything that happened with Brexit and all the conversations that we had about migration, and indeed, by the way, of the protection of women in our societies, which is something that we have started to talk about more and more recently. From one particular perspective, we need to be running the gamut on that, quite frankly, because it's under assault across the board. But the other part of it, I think, as well, I'm going to hand over to Joe on this too, is I think a lot of that Trump administration, a lot of the people I was talking to at the time, simply could not believe this was happening in Europe, right? Simply could not believe that these attacks were becoming so routine that actually the media, the mainstream media, whether it was Le Monde in France, or whether it was the Daily Telegraph in the United Kingdom, or all across the board, would actually stop covering terror attacks and attempted terror attacks, because for them, it was just like a robbery on the street corner, right? It's just de rigueur. It's just, oh, what did Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, say? He said it's part and parcel of living in a city. Oh, terror attacks are part and parcel of living in a Western city. Yes, Sadiq Khan, it might be part and parcel of living in a city where your mindset is from. But it is not part and parcel of a city in a country that my parents came to and wanted to improve and wanted to be a part of the improvement of the lot. You know, my parents taught me to integrate and assimilate and speak the Queen's English, you know, and talk and not segregate ourselves, and not assume that we are a different part of society that is held to a different standard, or that anything is owed to us. No. We were taught to go out and work and to be part of the society that they had moved into. And so I think, to answer your question, dumbstruck. A lot of people were dumbstruck by the fact that this continued to happen, and by the way, continues to happen unreported on a regular basis. If the mainstream media, and I'm sorry for going long, but I'm really not, if the mainstream media, or the corporate media as I like to call them, reported on the attacks on churches across Europe with the same, even half of the breathlessness that they report, you know, attacks on, you know, black people in America, Jussie Smollett, you know, all of this nonsense that gets peddled for this mania, this, what I think in the 70s was referred to as a sort of race relations mania, then you'd know. But dozens upon dozens of cathedrals are attacked routinely. They're burned to the ground and nobody hears about this. And, you know, I realize today I've accidentally given like very spiritual and religious-based comments and answers, but it comes down to this. It does, and it will continue to come down to this, because, and this is why I think it's got to be Trump. It's got to be Trump, because they watched all of that take place. They watched all of the reaction from the West, you know, the rest of the West. They watched all of the reaction from the corporate media, and now they know. Now they know. Now they know what they're dealing with. Now they know how it works. And I don't know about you, I can't take another 4 years of learning curve, okay? I just cannot do that. No curve, no more curve. Day one, we're in there and we're swinging the bats. That's all I'm saying.
I think the big thing is to learn from the lessons of what happened in Europe. I think as Americans, a lot of times we don't like to look at the rest of the world, but what happened? Europe had a massive illegal immigration problem that they fully leaned into by opening up their borders, right? I think Hungary was the only country that said, no, we're building a wall, we're turning people away. Then the media jumped all over Hungary and said they're all racist xenophobes for wanting to have something like a border and not just letting unrestricted illegal immigration come into their country. And we need to learn from that. We see how horrible it worked out for Germany, what's happening right now in Britain, and really throughout Europe. I mean, Europe is being absolutely crushed by unchecked illegal mass migration. And we're fortunate here in the Western Hemisphere because the folks that can walk into America, they actually share a lot of cultural with us. They share religious foundation with us. But at the same time, it's going to be exploited by bad actors. And at the end of the day, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And that's not racist, that's not a political thing. I mean, that's just basic common sense. That used to be something that Republicans and Democrats agreed on, but the Democrats, because the Democrats are really, really good at never letting a crisis go to waste. I mean, Obama's old chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, I think he's the one that actually coined that phrase. I don't think the Democrats are sitting back in some cabal saying, we'll force a migration crisis here or there. These things happen because of war, because of chaos. However, Biden, when he came in, what did he say? He said the border's wide open, and now we have massive illegal immigration coming into our country. And who else has exploited that? Well, the Chinese Communist Party has exploited that. If there's no border, what have they done? They've taken a bunch of the precursors for fentanyl, they've given them to Mexican drug cartels. The drug cartels are now pumping fentanyl into America. What's the #1 killer of Americans right now? It's fentanyl coming from the Chinese Communist Party and the Mexican drug cartels. But if you listen to the mainstream media talk, you'd think the #1 killer of Americans right now is like Vladimir Putin and a threat to like our democracy or some nonsense like that. So really, I mean, at the end of the day, like you talked about a big, massive issue with illegal immigration. If we can't learn from that, then we are absolutely doomed to fail. We have to have a strong border. And look, this is to get back to why it has to be Trump. Who was talking about illegal immigration before Donald Trump was? It wasn't, we weren't allowed to talk about it on the national stage. And Trump came in and he said, we're going to build a wall. And he was stifled. There's a bunch of Republicans that stabbed him in the back. And we still need the wall. But Trump's a problem solver. He got in there and he said, okay, well, these people aren't just appearing out of nowhere. They're coming from South America. So he went right to the source and he said to all the governments in Mexico and everything south of Mexico, if you don't stop the caravans, I'm going to cut off your foreign aid and I'm going to tariff the ever-loving heck out of everything that comes across the border. And yeah, he didn't stop all the illegal immigration, but he put a massive dent in the illegal immigration by using the proper tools of the executive branch, by not just relying on one tool. He used a lot of our strength of our economy and tariffs. So that really just gets back to the core of the issue. We have to have a president, we have to have leaders that actually say, hey, this is not just some open market bazaar. This is a sovereign nation that cares deeply about its people and is going to defend their borders. And I think President Trump, at the core of him, for all the flaws he has, I really think he understands that. I think all of you understand that too. I think that's what the difference is between the old corporate Republican Party that talked a lot about GDP and talked a lot about like, well, we like legal immigration and we want to bring in skilled people, and this more nationalist, populist, America First wing of our party. And that's, we really are in the lead here. And we are leading the charge and actually taking our country back. So no matter how bad things get, just know that we're winning, because they wouldn't need to run all this propaganda against us if we weren't winning. So I'll just close out with that, because we're just getting started. We've got a whole other campaign to get through. Raheem, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, jump here!
All right, how about that? I'm going to be on the side. So make sure you grab your stuff. There you go. And then the Limitless American gift card is also yours. Be sure to put on the table for me. And then the patriotic basket is better reader. But I'm sure that's close enough. Are you still here, Beth? Or Beth? Beth Rose. Okay. So you got the patriotic basket. Okay. And finally, Joe Draper got this towel set. You can think about it anytime. Carol Stanley. Okay, you get the towels. So.